From Codex to Code, a short history of digital humanities. What does it mean to read, to understand, to interpret? For centuries, the humanities have asked these questions. But today we must ask something new. What happens when machines begin to ask those same questions alongside us? Digital humanities is not simply the application of technology to culture. It is a philosophical transformation. It asks, what if interpretation itself can be structured, tagged, processed, even predicted? We begin not with answers, but with a shift in perspective. The question is no longer how do we read, but rather what is reading when a machine reads with us? The story begins in the late 1940s with an Italian Jesuit priest named Roberto Busa. He envisioned a concordance of Thomas Aquinas' Latin works, a feat impossible to complete by hand. So, he turned to IBM. Together, they built a system to index hundreds of thousands of lines of theological text. This collaboration, blending medieval scholasticism with cutting-edge computation, marks the birth of digital humanities. For the first time, a machine was used to process human language for scholarly insight. Not to replace the scholar, but to extend their reach. Busa didn't just digitize words, he reimagined what scholarship could be when partnered with the machine. By the 1980s and 90s, digital humanities matured into a discipline. Projects like the Text Encoding Initiative, TEI, gave scholars a shared system for marking up texts, from Shakespeare to ancient manuscripts. XML became the language of interpretation, letting researchers annotate not only what texts say, but how they say it. Line breaks, speaker tags, emphasis, deletions, all encoded, all searchable. In this phase, the humanities were no longer merely read, they were modeled. Culture became data. Interpretation became architecture. This era didn't erase the human touch, it made it legible to machines. And that legibility opened new doors for analysis, comparison, and collaboration. In the early 2000s, scholars like Franco Moretti introduced distant reading, a radical departure from traditional close reading. Instead of interpreting one novel, why not analyze 1,000? Algorithms mapped genre shifts, charted sentiment arcs, and traced character networks. Literature became a landscape of patterns. And yet, as we stepped back to see the whole, something shifted. The interpreter began to look less like a reader and more like a designer. A curator of models, simulations, and systems. We weren't just studying texts, we were building frameworks to recreate their logic. In doing so, we accepted a new premise, that knowledge can be derived not from immersion, but from abstraction. And that abstraction, if designed well, might reveal truths we could never see up close. Today, with large language models like GPT, digital humanities enters a new terrain. Machines not only read text, they generate it. They simulate voices, genres, even emotions. A machine can now write a Shakespearean sonnet, imitate Hamlet's grief, or compose a fictional diary entry as Virginia Woolf. These feats invite deeper reflection, not on whether AI replaces humanity, but on how it helps us model, extend, and better understand the many layers of what it means to be human. As LLMs replicate human expression with uncanny precision, we must ask whether interpretation is still ours alone. Or has it become a shared act, a dance between prediction and meaning, code and consciousness? Digital humanities is not about replacing the human. It is about expanding what it means to be one. From Busa's punch cards to neural nets, we have always sought ways to extend our intellect through tools. But today, the tools read back. They revise, generate, and reflect. The question we now face is not whether machines can interpret texts, but whether we are ready to interpret the machine.